expecting everyone to be vegan leans pretty hard into the colonialist mindset. We're going to have to talk about the exploitation of farm workers down in the global south.
Okay, as you can probably tell by just looking at me, I'm Indian. And I also live in India. And I've lived here my entire life. And I belong to a marginalized section of India, which is northeastern India. I could go on further, and trust me I could, but let's keep it quick and simple. So I live in a country that is a part of the so-called global south. So-called global south. As anyone who knows me can probably tell you, right, I really dislike identity politics. Let me clarify that point. It means that, amongst other things, I don't care for anyone's skin color. But the reason I'm telling you all of these group identities about me, right, is because today I'm responding to a person who leans very hard into identity politics. So today I'm sort of playing by his rules. Okay? So with that cleared up, let's dive right into the video.
Alright, vegans. It's time that we have a conversation about the fact that veganism is not cruelty-free and for many people completely unsustainable.
Okay, listen up, white boy. The point of veganism is not that it is cruelty-free. The point is to not cause unnecessary suffering. Merely by existing in this world, we will inevitably cause some amount of suffering, right? But that doesn't mean that we are justified to cause unnecessary suffering, right? I will cause suffering and you will cause suffering no matter what you do, right? But that doesn't mean that you are justified to come and punch me because you cause suffering anyway. No, right? You're not justified to do that, because to do that would be you causing unnecessary suffering where it can be so easily avoided. Understood? Good boy.
We're going to have to talk about the fact that agriculture is exempt from fair labor practices in the United States, so there are about 500,000 children picking roughly 25% of your crops.
I've got two things to say to that. Veganism is not answerable for the arbitrary laws of the United States of America. The problems of the United States of America are the problems of the United States of America. Veganism is not answerable for those. And point number two, you do know that the animals that you eat, right, they need to be fed crops, right? And they need to be fed a lot more crops than would be necessary if you ate plants directly. So this number that you're quoting, right, I'll grant that it is true. It might not be true, it might be true, who knows? But I'll trust that you're not lying to us, right? That number is far higher, right, for the amount of children who are picking the crops, right, that are to be fed to the non-human animals whom you are eating. And this is not the same, okay? Remember this. You will need far less crops if you ate them directly, right, than the number of crops which are to be grown to feed the animals that you ultimately eat. So not only do you cause a lot more suffering to the children whom you claim to care about, right? On top of that, you also cause unnecessary suffering onto the non-human animals who are killed because you just like the taste of their flesh. Okay, so there's a huge disproportion there, okay, in the number of children who are working for the production of your food, and also the additional number of non-human individuals who are killed because of your temporary taste pleasure. Do you get the difference there, white boy? Good. Let's move on.
We're going to have to talk about the exploitation of farm workers down in the global south, many of whom are being forced to work for slave wages while their staple crop, things like quinoa, are being exported up here just so you can feel morally superior.
Again, same reasoning applies. You cause far more worker exploitation because far more crops are required to feed the animals whom you eat. And that's on top of the animals whom you eat, whom vegans simply do not eat. In fact, let me give you a number. It can take up to 25 kilograms of grain and 15,000 liters of water to produce just 1 kilogram of meat. Sources are always in the description, and those are scientific, peer-reviewed sources. Also, let me tell you another not so fun fact. If the same resources, right, were being dedicated to produce crops to feed human beings directly, right, then we could nourish 3.5 billion additional human beings with the same resources, instead of feeding the crops to the non-human animals so that you can eat those non-human animals. If we just grew crops to feed human beings, we would be able to nourish 3.5 billion additional human beings. Oh, and one more thing, dear white boy. Kindly stop using terms like Global South. It is a projection of your American political framework onto the rest of the world. And quite frankly, it's frustrating. I mean, you don't have to stop. That's your choice if you want to use the term. But it's just really, really frustrating. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, a sub to the channel would be just phenomenal. It really helps out a small channel like mine out.
We're going to have to talk about the fact that several of the most common food allergies, like soy, wheat, and peanuts, are common vegan substitutes, and so it makes it completely unsustainable for people with those allergies.
Substitutes. This is a point that I just have to keep repeating for some reason. And it is that it is only the ultra-privileged or the hyper-privileged, whatever you want to call them, who think that veganism requires privilege. Because when they think of veganism, right, they think of substitutes, right? They think that a Starbucks latte, they think that these are basic needs when they are not, right? Vegan substitutes to animal-based products are not a necessary part of being vegan. You can simply eat normal plant-based food, which is the kind of stuff that I eat, right? So you can be perfectly vegan without eating vegan substitutes. You think of substitutes, of vegan substitutes to animal products, because you are so sheltered by your privilege that you have no idea what vegan food also encompasses. It is time to look beyond your privileged bubble and find out what vegan food is. Okay, white boy? Good. Also, even if it were the case that someone just could not get the nutrients that they need from plant-based food, which is very unlikely and happens in the rarest of cases, right? Even if that were the case, you have to remember what veganism means. Veganism is a philosophy and a way of life which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to non-human animals for, amongst other things, food. So even if this person cannot get all their nutrients from plant-based food and is forced to consume some animal products, that person can still be vegan, albeit they are not vegan in the same sense that I am vegan. But there's a solution to this, and the solution is that the people who can go vegan in the sense that I am vegan should go vegan, so that veganism and plant-based food become more mainstream and become more accessible to everyone, right? What is not a part of the solution is painting veganism as something only hyper-privileged people do, right? You are part of the problem if you're doing that. And white boy, I'm afraid to say you are a part of the problem here.
And we're going to have to talk about the fact that the massive amounts of deforestation that are required to make the farmland to produce your cruelty-free crops destroys the ecosystems of a lot of indigenous wildlife.
It's interesting that you talk about deforestation while criticizing veganism. Let me tell you a statistic. Animal-based food, the production of animal-based food, takes up 83% of global farmland, but produces only 18% of the calories that human beings consume. That is a huge disparity. And if we stopped consuming animal-based products, right, and switched to a plant-based diet, right, all of us, right, then we could reduce, yes, that's right, we could reduce our global farmland usage by 76%, right? So all the farmland that we currently use, right, we could just stop using 76% of that if we just all switched to a plant-based diet. So animal-based food production is what is responsible for this deforestation that you're talking about. It's not vegans causing the deforestation, white boy. It is you, right? So stop doing that.
No one's saying that you can't be vegan, and no one's saying that the industrialized meat industry is free of sin, but get the fuck off your high horse.
I have something to say about this high horse comment, but I'll save it till the end, because he says it again at the end. So make sure to stick around till then.
Yesterday, I made a lot of vegans very upset. And before you go thinking this is an apology video, it's not. Get over yourselves. Many of the critiques that I made yesterday about veganism can also apply to the industrialized meat industry. And that's kind of the point. You're not any better than we are.
No, that's not the point. You probably missed the point of the people who were criticizing you. So let me explain it again, even though I've already explained it within this video. We all cause some suffering merely by existing in this world. That is inevitable. The problem here is that you are causing unnecessary suffering onto innocent individuals when it can be so easily avoided. That's the point. Get it?
There are a lot of ways that we can make the consumption of meat more ethical, more sustainable, and less cruel, but expecting everyone to be vegan is ableist, classist, and leans pretty hard into the colonialist mindset.
Veganism is none of those things. But let me tell you what is each of those things. Ableist. See, ableism, right, is, as you probably know, discrimination on the basis of ability or the lack of it. And this extends far beyond just physical disability, right? It also applies to discriminating on the basis of mental ability, right? Do you know what you do? You discriminate against innocent individuals such as pigs and chickens and goats and cows because of their lack of mental ability to do the things that you have the ability to do, because of their lower perceived intelligence, right? As perceived by you, you discriminate against them and assign them a moral worth that is lower than your temporary taste pleasure. And you're doing this on the basis of your perception of their lack of ability, of their lack of mental ability. That is ableist. Classist. I'll tell you what is classist. It is classist to use the suffering of the lower classes, right, of poor people, for your own greed. You keep saying that poor people cannot be vegan, right? In the sense that someone like me is vegan, although I'm not exactly very rich either. But anyway, you use their suffering, right, for your own greed of consuming animal products. You're tokenizing their suffering for your greed. That is classist. And kind of the same thing applies to what is colonialist. It is to use the suffering of people in post-colonial countries, such as India, for your greed. You are employing colonialist tactics, using the suffering of people in post-colonial countries for your greed. That is colonialist.
You're ignoring the cost of a lot of vegan options. You're also ignoring the prep that goes into a lot of those meals. Time that a lot of poor families can't afford to spend, which is why they rely so much on cheap fast food.
That right there is the perfect example of a classist who uses the suffering of poor people for his own greed. He also talks about things like the cost of certain vegan options. And that's because he's thinking of things like the cost of almond milk. Right? He thinks that a Starbucks latte is a basic need when it's not. Things like rice, beans, legumes, vegetables, etc. These are some of the cheapest food available in the market. And those perfectly suffice a vegan diet, right? Those and a few other things which are also cheap. Okay, I keep hearing this point about food prep time. And I've also seen some vegans just accept it as true and then arguing around that. But I just don't see the validity of this point. You see, I grew up in a very heavy meat eating culture, and I ate meat till I was like age 14. I'm 21 now, and so I do know how to cook meat, right? I do know how to cook animal-based food products, right? And obviously I also know how to cook vegan food. Vegan food does not take more prep time necessarily. It takes the same prep time as animal-based food, if not less, on most occasions. So I just don't see the validity of this point that people just keep on making for some reason.
You're also ignoring the existence of things like food deserts, where your options are really only cheap fast food. And while a lot of those places have salad options, you can't honestly expect people to just eat a McDonald's salad every single day of their life.
Okay, sure, I am perfectly aware that food deserts exist in your country, that is the United States, and that only animal-based food products are available in those places, right? But there's a solution to that, right? It is for people like you, right, who can go vegan in the sense that I am vegan, to go vegan, so that veganism and plant-based food becomes more accessible and mainstream, so that even the people whom you're referring to, right, can go vegan in the sense that I am vegan. The solution is not painting veganism as something only hyper-privileged people do and just continuing to eat meat when you are not in the situation where you have to eat meat or other animal-based food, right? Do better, white boy. Do better.
We can all do better, but you're still up on that high horse.
Okay, about this high horse comment, as promised. Okay, the first thing is that vegans don't ride horses, because that's animal exploitation. But the second point is that vegans, if they're telling you to go vegan, right, they're not doing it because they're on a high horse, mostly, right? They're doing it because they respect you enough. They respect you enough to know that you are capable of reaching the moral standard that your intelligence prescribes, right? We tell you to go vegan, we ask you to go vegan, we make the arguments for you to go vegan because we respect you enough to know that you're capable of going vegan. If we didn't think that you're capable of going vegan, we wouldn't try to convince you. Okay? I hope that's clear. Anyway, that's been it for this video. I've been Aditya Prakash, or Soytheist. Thank you kindly for watching the video, and an extra special thank you to my patrons on Patreon, who by the way voted for the topic of this video. If you'd like to do that too, be sure to check out my Patreon. There are other benefits as well, starting from just $1 a month. So be sure to check out my Patreon. It's the first link in the description. You can also follow me on social media here, and especially on Instagram, where I share my more candid thoughts in the form of reels, mostly. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps out a small channel like mine out. Also, let me know what you think of this video, right, of this response that I made to the original video, right? I'll be in the comment section for a while after uploading this, so be sure to let me know what you think. We can have some discussions there. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.